Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
Hello and welcome to the ISO Show. Well, today I'm delighted to be joined by Damian Edwards, who's a Quality Assurance Manager at XMA. Damian's going to be sharing with us his experience and some information on the benefits of ISO standards in the IT sector. So, hello, Damian.
Hello, Mel.
Great. Well, before we begin, could you provide an overview of what XMA does?
Yeah, certainly. Well, XMA is basically it's an IT company. We like to call ourselves a technology solutions company. Well, bit of background, we're basically a family-owned business, part of the West Coast Group. We employ about 500 people, mainly from offices in Nottingham and St Albans, but we also have other offices in Glasgow and Halifax. We're a value-added reseller. To put some buzzwords in there as well, we're a systems integrator. Managed service operator. We're also an original equipment manufacturer. We have our own brand called Biglin. So kind of to summarize that, we can provide IT and technology products, installations, integrations, networking, print solutions, security, imaging, software, and also that managed service. So, if you've got a problem, you can give our help desk a ring or we can get people out to you.
Right. So one-stop shop, really. Oh, sorry, carry on.
No. We're that one-stop shop, that's a good way of putting it, yeah, because traditionally we're a reseller, so we provide the kit, your laptops or whatever else you want, but also we provide all the services that go around that. I just wanted to add in a bit about our customers. So we're in the public and corporate sector, so education, schools, further education, higher education, central and local government. Got a large presence in Scotland, got healthcare customers as well, and a growing corporate business. So
really varied as far as the client base is concerned, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Very good. So which standards is XMA certified to?
We've got four main ones. Quality Management System, certified to 9001, got ISO 14001 for our environmental, 27001 for our information security, and one that's not so well known, 20000-1, which is a service management system. And we've also got one with quite a small scope, which is BSEN 15713, which is the secure destruction of confidential material.
Oh, so yes.
We've got quite a few there.
Okay, brilliant. Well, it'd be fantastic to hear about those standards in a bit more detail and in terms of your opinion of the benefits of these standards, both to XMA. I think we look at that initially, and then I'd like to just kind of then move on to the IT sector and, why you think those standards are beneficial there. So if we look at the benefits, obviously based on your experience at XMA, where did it begin with the ISO standards? Did it begin with 9001?
I think it did. It was well before my time now. But yeah, I think it started with the 9001. And also in our kind of recent history, the company's been merged. So our Nottingham office was XMA and our St Albans office was Biglin. They got merged together and they both had their own ISOs. So management systems got merged together. So work before I started happened in that area.
Right.
But I think the reasons we have them are kind of a twofold, really. One is, and being quite blunt here, it's because they're actually requirements from our customers. If we don't have these, we can't bid. We can't get the customers to actually do business with us.
Sorry to interject, but is that both in the public and private sector, Damian? Or is it more in one than the other?
I'd say it's probably more in the public sector. We're on what's called frameworks, which enables us to get access to business. Through it might be like a government framework or a healthcare framework, and that those will have requirements. So to get on that framework, they say, you must have 9001 or 14 or 27 and Cyber Essentials Plus or whatever. They'll give like a list. So you can't even think about wanting to get the business unless you have those assurances there. And I think that's what they are. I think it's the key word is that assurances that if they're going to do business with us, that we're of a certain standard. And I think that's the flip side. That's the other part of it, is that it is a benefit to the company. We know that our working practices are up to scratch. We're applying all the, Annex A controls, if you like, from 27001. So we know our systems are secure. We're applying them. We've got good buy-in from top management. They understand it. So, it shows our customers that we know what we're doing. And also, from our point of view, it helps us with best practice and having all the correct policies in place.
So just touching on the word that you use there, assurance, just to highlight that. So it's giving assurance to clients, but also other really important stakeholders like your employees, and providing assurance of the systems that are working effectively and working in a systematic way, I guess. If you've got 500 employees in different locations across the country, I guess you have to have those systems in place as well from an operational point of view, don't you?
That's exactly right, yeah. They're all aware of the standards that we work to through induction. They're told about them. We have reminders throughout the year. And when we've got auditors or assessors on site, everyone knows, everyone does their bit. They understand what they have to do. And, everyone realises that they've all got to do their bit to keep our certificates. And so when the assessors come in and they're needed, everyone steps up.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So it does work well. Yeah.
So looking at breaking down those standards then that you mentioned then, what would you say would be the main benefit of 9001?
Yeah, so the main benefits 9001. Well, I always think of 9001 as kind of, I know it's called quality management system. Some people struggle with that term. I've heard people say before, maybe you should swap out the word quality for the word customer. It helps people think about the customer at the end of the day. It's about understanding their requirements. Yes. But for me, it's a bit more than that. It's about kind of almost how you run a business. So if you know 9001, it's about understanding the context of your business and the scope and the risks associated. And I think it is quite good at that, at kind of focusing on what's important. When I started in this current role about 3 years ago, I did say on my interview, I don't want to work here if it's just a tick box exercise. It needs to be embedded. And I do think that is the case here. And I think if you have got a well-run business, then a lot of 9001 kind of happens anyway. Our top management, they do focus on customers, they focus on staff. I've not been paid to say this, by the way.
It sounds good though.
They do a thing. I was going to say they do a thing a couple of times a year where they go out around all the offices and they do a thing called the Big Conversation, which is like a presentation about changes to the business, what's happened that year, the focus for next year. And that's, I'm just standing there thinking they don't know about 9001, but this is kind of says it in the standard, about top management communicating, saying the objectives, saying changes, everybody's kind of aware what they need to be doing.
Absolutely. And I think what many businesses don't realise, that 9001 can actually be used as a great communication tool, because everything is so transparent, isn't it? Your objectives, whether it's vision, values, processes, who's responsible for doing what. It's all clearly documented and available for staff, isn't it? There's nothing that's hidden, which I think can be useful when running an organisation. No, that's interesting. So if we look at the environmental standard then, some may argue for an IT company, why have an environmental system? What would you say to that?
Well, they've got a point, as in, we're not an industrial site, with chimneys, smoke pluming out, or, waste going into watercourses or anything like that. So we do have our original equipment, so the Vigeland brand, but it's more of like assembly rather than big manufacturing. But 14,001 says you need to understand your aspects and impact. So what impact do you have on the environment? So the activities you do, what impact does that have? So when we look at our business, 500 people all using a lot of electricity. So, we need to keep a handle on that. There's quite a lot of, and it is kind of big news at the moment, a lot of packaging waste, unfortunately. A lot of items come into us that we try and reduce the packaging down where we can, but that is something that we need to manage. So, I would argue that any business, no matter what they're doing, has some kind of environmental impact, and it is something that you need to identify what is your most significant activity that caused that impact, and then kind of control that. That's what we try to do. And this day and age, it's a big focus. Our customers ask a lot of questions around this area, and having 14001 definitely helps us
to demonstrate it as well, isn't it? It's not just you saying, oh yes, well, we've got an environmental policy, but just pay lip service to it. You're actually practicing it and demonstrating how you're doing that, aren't you, through having the standards?
That's right, yes. And some of our solutions that we can offer customers helps them with their environmental impact as well. For instance, as I said before, we can reduce packaging. So it may be that fewer boxes, and then that's then fewer lorries going out, fewer deliveries. Or it could be that we can image them or configure them here. That's lessening their environmental impact, but then we can try and manage that from our end. And there's also the waste as well, the waste. That's something else we tightly manage.
So, from what you mentioned, which was a great example about the distribution of those goods and the packaging, it's not only going to be more environmentally friendly for, the environment that we live in, but also from an operational point of view, it must be more cost effective because you're dealing with minimal distribution. You're reducing that and reducing the amount of packaging, aren't you? And therefore fuel and energy and CO2 emissions. So it all adds up, doesn't it?
It is, and it's similar to what I said earlier about having the ISOs is twofold. The good thing about, cutting back on, as you say, the packaging and the energy using it is a cost saving as well.
So let's move on to ISO 27001. I mean, what would you say the greatest benefits of that standard?
Being an IT industry, connecting to creating networks or having access to data maybe for customers, it is essential really. And as I say, a lot of customers, insist on some kind of cybersecurity certification or accreditation. So we've got 27001 and Cyber Essentials Plus, as you said before, to give assurances that we're a safe company to deal with. It sounds as though that's
almost like a passport to trade in the IT sector then, and having that standard, especially as, we live in an information-rich society now that we're all, vulnerable to hacking and, getting access to our data, aren't we? So, I can see how that's so critical. And then ISO 20000, so that's the IT service management standard, isn't it? I know that not as many organisations have got that compared to 27001, but what would you say are the main benefits of the IT service management for you?
Well, not many people have heard of it. They may have heard of ITIL, which is a similar kind of standard. It's like the ISO version. There is an information security element of it, but it's mainly how you deliver a service to your customers. So it's understanding what they require and then how you deliver it to them. I do find I think it's because it's an older standard. It's just going through transition now to a newer version. But I think it's quite different to the others. It's still quite descriptive. It says you must have this policy, you must do this, you must do the other. So it is not more difficult to implement or to manage, but it does take, a level of understanding, and I work with the service management teams to do that. But it just demonstrates that you are following best practice. You're aware of the standards and what customers
I think with that one, it's very much about dotting the I's and crossing the T's, isn't it? With one of our consultants, Steve Mason, implements that particular standard. And, from the feedback that I've had, that it is a useful standard. And also, I think there's a bit of a common misconception that it is just for the IT industry, when actually it can be applied in any other type of industry that's providing a service, like a call centre. So is that predominantly used by your service desk then, is it, that standard?
It is, yeah. The scope of it is around our service management teams. So, centred on the service desk, but then you've got the associated teams like the service managers or the teams that actually go out to see the customers. And the kind of input to it may be from the projects that they're originally set up to set up the service. So that's about understanding, it's a bit of a crossover to 9001 really. So understanding the customer's requirements and ensuring that we deliver on them. As you say, I think dotting the I's and crossing the T's is definitely the right term for this standard. But it is good. When you go through the standards, it is almost like, you're crossing off the list of, am I doing all the things I need to be doing? It goes as far into kind of budgeting it goes that deep. It's not just about the service. Is it all paid for? Are you covering the customer's requirements? When things change, is that done properly? It is
cool.
quite an in-depth
Okay, you mentioned
standard.
about the crossover with 9001. So how do you manage all of these standards then, Damian? Is it an integrated management system?
Not entirely. I like to confuse my auditors with this one, but it's the 9 and 14 are quite integrated. And it's actually to do with kind of top management reporting, really, because the 9 and 14 go into the operations director, who's my boss. But then the 27,001 would go into the CIO, Chief Information Officer. 20,000 top management there is the services director. So, if I'm doing a management review, I'll do it for 9 and 14, and then the head of information security would do the 27 with his boss. And
makes sense,
That's why they can't be fully integrated. But there are elements that are integrated, for instance, internal audit and kind of associated actions and root cause, things like that. So I kind of manage all that. For everything.
Fantastic. So,
and everyone.
I think then you mentioned about the management review with the different members of the leadership team, then that makes complete sense that you've got that level of focus with them, haven't you? And you can look into those specific areas in more detail. Oh, and sorry, I don't want to forget the other standard that you mentioned, which was about secure destruction. So is that the secure destruction of any IT equipment?
Well, it's actually quite a small scope. It's associated with our print division. So if we have maybe leased or printed to somebody, you're talking about the large ones, and then it's the end of the lease and we bring them back, or it may be that we're taking them from a customer. We said we'll handle the destruction of their old equipment, but they could have latent images on them. They've actually got hard drives on them. So it's associated with that. Again, I think this was actually originated from a customer requirement. So it's basically to demonstrate that, if we're going to take these back, we're going to make sure they're destroyed properly. And if there is any personal or sensitive information that's on them, then we're going to make sure they're destroyed properly. I mean, to be fair, most of the processes are handled by contractors, but then we will demonstrate that our contractors either have 15713 or follow the correct procedures as laid out in that standard. So, we do what we can here.
What's your main role as the quality assurance manager at XMA?
Well, you mentioned objectives earlier. One of my objectives is to make sure that we keep all of those certificates for all of those ISOs. So now, obviously, I can't be responsible for running all of them. So mainly my responsibility is on the 9 and the 14. So running all of that, with help from the relevant teams. But the 27,001 and the 20,000, I'm working with the information security manager or the service management teams, because I need their expertise to help me.
Yeah. So it sounds like you deal with all the common elements of those standards, because obviously there's a common element that kind of runs through all of them. So is that the area that you look after then? And then any kind of more, technical aspects of, say, information security or service management, then that's dealt with by a colleague then?
That's right, yeah. And it could be a case of me reminding people that things need to be done as well, So I may talk to the information security teams and say, are all your risk logs up to date? Your security incidents that you've logged, are they up to date? Are you managing properly? Are they being closed off or are they being changed into risk? Have you done your root cause? That kind of thing. So it's me having like an overview, and it is quite good that the teams understand what they need to be doing, but it's just sometimes I can just offer that reminder that things need to be done.
Yeah. So is that one of the greatest challenges, would you say, is, in terms of making sure everybody's compliant, is just making sure everybody is aware and complying with the standards?
Yes, it is. Yeah. I mean, the managers that I deal with, they understand it. I don't know if what you find when you go around your customers, but it's normally people that is the biggest challenge. We're quite good on our, document control and things like that, but it's some people maybe like to use their own form or doctor something that shouldn't do, or, it only takes one person to click a link or wander off from their desk, leave it unlocked. It's that kind of thing. They're the kind of biggest challenge. It's your day-to-day thing. You can have all your policies in place, you can lock things down as much as possible. but people do sometimes find their way around it. But that's the challenge, isn't it?
I was going to say, if you could give one tip on overcoming those challenges, what would it be, Damian?
Well, one tip would probably be is communication. I think everyone needs to be aware. It's not just, if we're going to log an action for something, don't just ping an email or, set it on the system. Go and talk to that person, make them understand what needs to be done. And I think that's the best way of doing it. We'll live in a lifestyle where we've got IT information flying at us through all different sources. But I think picking up the phone or going to actually speak to somebody face to face so they understand it can help overcome those challenges. But I know you said one tip, but I think just another thing, if you've got top management actually understanding and their buy-in, that helps as well.
Yeah, it makes all the difference, I think, doesn't it? Yeah. And so obviously you've got a collection of ISO standards then, and clearly, the standards are first class at XMA. But are there any other BS or ISO standards that you're considering in the future for the business, and why might that be?
Well, the customers sometimes ask for standards. We recently looked at BS 8477, which is a code of practice for customer service, and also customers have been mentioning ISO 31000, which is risk management. We sometimes push back on some of these things because we need to understand it. Does the customer actually, I don't want to be kind of say they don't know what they're talking about, but do they actually understand the impact that has on our business?
Yeah, because a code of practice isn't certifiable, is it? So it's best practice. It's utopia, isn't it? And quite often they're written in a way that can be quite woolly, but quite useful, but not necessarily, it's not a specification, put it that way, is it? So you can't necessarily clearly create a policy or procedure around the detail, because the detail isn't there, is it? It's just this is best case scenario.
That's it. I mean, we've seen on things, asking for 27002 to be certified. Well, again, that's the guidelines, isn't it, for implementing 27001. So yeah, we sometimes do push back on that. I've looked at a few other things. Looked at ISO 50001 for energy management, because I knew that if you had that, you didn't need to do ESOS. And I was wondering if the new SECR, the Streamlined Energy and Carbon Reporting, if you had 50001, you didn't need to do that, but apparently that's not the case. You need to do SECR anyway.
Shame.
Yes, that's what I thought. And also looked at 22301 for business continuity.
Oh, business continuity, yes.
Yeah. So now the customers haven't asked for this, but it's something we've looked at because we do, it is a big area. You want to secure your business, and also it is a way of demonstrating that you've got all your plans in place. I'm not sure about that one, but that has been discussed as well.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting, because obviously business continuity is covered in 27001, but not in any great depth, is it? And I think where organisations might have a service level agreement where downtime could actually cost the organisation money, then that's where I think business continuity is critical, isn't it? I mean, business continuity is important for all businesses, but yeah, I think it's definitely worth a look at a 22301. That's wonderful. Well, I think we've just about run out of time now, Damian, unfortunately. But I think just one final question. If you could gift a book to somebody, what would it be and why?
It'd probably depend on the person, because they might not like what I read, but...
Well, regardless then.
Yeah, so I quite like a lot of sports things, especially kind of books about cycling. I like the autobiographies and the biographies, because you get to see behind the scenes. And the way I've kind of associated with my role a bit is a lot of it is actually process driven. So a lot of the success with British cycling is that they actually look at it as a process. So they look where they need to be and what they need to do to get there and work it backwards. That is how they actually achieve their success. So there's quite a few books on that. Chris Hoy had a good one, which is called How to Ride a Bike.
I was thinking of that one, actually. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that goes into great depth on, all the steps you can go through to achieve your success. So yeah, that's a quite good one. And it's on offer now, quite a few places. So yeah.
Great. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Damian. I really appreciate that. It's been really useful to hear about, how these standards have kind of influenced XMA and the benefits to the organisation. That's been really helpful. So, thanks very much.
Okay, no, thank you. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Good stuff. Well, if listeners would like to subscribe to the ISO show, you can do that via Spotify, iTunes and SoundCloud. So we'd love to hear any feedback and any reviews from you as well. We'd really welcome that. So until the next time, I look forward to catching up with you on the next ISO show.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive